Hey, I have a problem with this Boston bombing. Um, Something's fishy. We got the FBI, who's now saying that they had uh, been given warnings about the older brother, and that he was on their radar. And yet, um, when he goes to Russia for 6 months, there's no follow up as to what he did there or who he met, so on and so forth. I mean, that just seems crazy to me. But the thing that really gets me and bugs me is that the FBI puts this big media show about unveiling these photographs they have of the two brothers and saying, "Help us. Who are these people?" When it seems to be obvious that they knew who these two brothers were long before the bombing. And certainly, with all these FBI agents going over these tapes, they must have recognized these two brothers. And yet, they're asking us to identify them. And another thing that bothers me is since those original photographs were shown, where they said, "Who are these brothers?" Now we see tons more images, better images of these guys, and we're supposed to believe that those images they didn't have any access to those. It makes no sense. They something stinks about this. They're asking our help to identify these two brothers when clearly a year and a half, possibly 2 years before the bombing, the older brother for sure was on the radar. And you know that if the older brother was on the radar, the younger brother was on the radar. So they knew who these young men were, and yet they're asking us to help them identify them when they must have known who they were. Uh, does this bother anybody? Or am I just off in left field here? Something is very strange. Another thing that's very strange is this homicide of the older brother's so-called best friend. I mean, he's his the older brother's so-called best friend and two of his friends are murdered on September 11th of 2011, the 10-year anniversary of 9/11, and their throats are cut from ear to ear. They're left on the floor, and marijuana and cash is sprinkled all over them. Now, how many dope dealers who murder other dope dealers who are supposedly infringing on their territory, how many of those dope dealers would leave the dope, leave the cash? They're going to grab that dope. They're going to grab that cash. And the FBI, who had the older brother under the radar, they don't even have an inquiry as to this unsolved homicide involving the best friend of this older brother who is on their terrorist watch list. Something stinks to high heaven about this. But I would love for anybody to, comment. What do you think? Am I off in left field, or do I have a legitimate question here. And again, I say the biggest question for me is, if these young men were on the FBI's radar, why the big dog and pony show saying, help us, who are these people, when they must have known who they were? Well, something's funny, and it's not very funny.